I am so excited today to be on here with one of my dearest friends and who I love. She's one of my mentors. She's incredible. She's written an amazing book. She is the creator of Ideal Life Vision. And I'm just going to wait for a second for everybody to jump on. Let me go to my Facebook page really quick and just make sure we're on. We are on and we are good. So this is awesome. All right, so I would love to introduce you guys to everyone watching live and everyone watching the recording later, to my dear friend Ann Webb from Camas, Utah, originally from Salt Lake City, Utah, and she has taught me so much about creating and living my ideal life vision. So the affirmation for today, we'll say at the beginning and at the end, is I design and live my ideal life vision. So Ann, welcome to the call today.
Thank you. I'm excited. I always like to see your beautiful face.
Oh, thank you. It's so great to have you here since I haven't seen you in person for a little while. So I'm going to turn the time over to you. And if you can just share your story and just tell us a little bit about what Ideal Life Vision is, and then we'll just kind of go back and forth after that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm going to try and remember this great story because guess what, Jill? It has been 30 years.
But
It's
if you
actually
don't
30
remember,
years.
if you don't remember, I can help you out with your story.
I'm sure
I
you
know
can.
your story just as well as you do.
No, really. So my story starts 30 years ago. And at that time, my husband and I were just getting out of graduate school. So to back up just a little bit, when I married my husband, we just actually had our 36th wedding anniversary a few days ago. He said to me, look, Ann, if you will just put me through 6 years of school, because he was just getting started, we were in our early 20s, I promise that when we get out, we will be rich and you will never have to work another day in your life.
Ah,
Oh, yeah, I know. We could laugh at that. My first mistake was I actually believed him. Okay, but no, that didn't happen because he decided to go to an Ivy League school. And honestly, the only reason I mention that is because when you go to one of those, it just means that you now have tens and tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars in student loans that you now have to pay back. And not only that, he took an entry-level position. That's what they called it. And in case you don't know what that means, that's code for we're going to pay you peanuts in Washington, D.C., which at that time was the most expensive city in the U.S. And so these three factors of, well, let me just put numbers to it. The entry-level position paid him $25,000 a year, which is about roughly $2,000 a month. 800 went to our expensive rent in DC. 800 went to student loans, and that left $400 for now a family of four. 6 years later, we had two kids, and that had to include everything, food and insurance and everything. And this rich bliss lifestyle that he promised me was definitely not happening because now we're in real life. And to just again, after 6 years of being in school and being that broke, you have to get a life. And so for us, date night always was we played, cards and we had brownies, and I put a pitcher of ice water out because we couldn't, afford to go to a movie with our friends. We couldn't afford to go out to dinner unless our parents paid, which was kind of humiliating after being married, basically for 7 years. Our parents still had to pay for our dinner. And so that was things were really spiraling down for us. And again, after 6 years, in my mind, I was like, I'm not leaving my kids anymore in daycare. All I wanted to do was be a stay-at-home mom and have more kids. And that's what was my goal at that point in my life, which I think is a great goal. And so I decided instead of putting them in daycare, I was going to start a business to help with the finances. Because I heard that if you start a business that you're going to be rich. Right, Jill? All you
Yeah.
have to do is start a business and you'll be rich. Well, that's what I heard. And let me just put it this way. I wasn't such a good businesswoman back in the day because my first business, I went in the hole. My second business, I made $100 total. My third business, I made 200. I doubled it. And I wish I could say that was per month, but no, it was total. And so needless to say, I'm a bad businesswoman. We're still not going out to eat and things are just spiraling down. It all came to a head one particular weekend when, again, the date night was invite the friends over, let's play cards, make some brownies, put out ice water, and one of the couples decided to go into the kitchen to get some cold milk. And they were good enough friends that they wouldn't ask me if they could have a drink of milk. They would just help themselves. And they brought the jug of milk back into the living room where we were all playing cards. And there were a bunch of us. This wasn't like 4 people. This was more like 8 to 10 people. And they poured a glass of milk and passed it around again and again. And ultimately that brand new gallon was now empty, which one of them threw in the trash. And I was sick to my stomach. And when they left, I started bawling, okay, because I knew we didn't have $1.25 to buy another gallon of milk for at least a week. I was the money manager. I was the one that, paid the bills, made sure that we were always, had enough money. And now I knew we didn't. And, it's one thing when that's your reality and you're like, oh, well, we'll just put water on our cereal for the rest of the week. Big deal. Okay. But it's a whole different thing when you know that you're going to have to either put water or powdered milk into your baby's bottles for a week and they're going to cry because that didn't cut it. And so I knew that that was what was coming. And I could not believe that this was where my life was. I was in real life now, 7 years of being married, and this is where we were. And so interestingly, about that same time, my dad calls me from Utah. I'm from Utah. And again, we're on the East Coast. And he's like, hey, Ann, look, I know you don't have any money to buy airline tickets to fly home for Christmas, but I'm going to send you some because I want you here for Christmas because I have 2 things that I cannot wait to tell you about. And he literally sounded like that on the phone. And I was like, really? Well, just tell me. I was so intrigued because my dad had never really acted like that or sounded like that on the phone. And he goes, no, just wait till Christmas because I kind of have to show you about it. And so anyway, we did fly home, me and my 2 kids and my husband for Christmas. And I was not even past the doorway when I dropped my suitcases and I was like, okay, Dad, spill it. What are these 2 ideas? And he goes in the other room and he brings back this little fabric plaid. Okay, think of the 90s. If you're actually old enough to have been alive in the 90s, think of a little plaid Christmas bag that had a little cinnamon stick on it with a little gift tag, and it was about this big. And I'm like, what is this? And my dad's like, Ann, that's your mom's wassail recipe. Now, again, if you know what wassail is, it is like a Christmas cider, lemon, orange spice. Really, it was made with tang, country time lemonade, cinnamon cloves. And my mom had this recipe and we had it every year for Christmas. And she gave it out as neighbor gifts. And my dad went on to tell me how this neighbor girl had taken my mom's recipe, packaged it like this, and had gone on to California and sold it at craft shows. And he said, and last month she made $30,000. And wow, that I was like, what? That's more than we made in an entire year. And my dad was telling me this. He's like, look, this is your mom's recipe. They're on the East Coast. You are on the, East Coast. And I think you should do this. And we started chatting about my 6th business. And I was excited about this one because it had a track record. Somebody made money and maybe I could do this. And so after a little while of chatting about how I could do something similar, not to copy her exactly, but to do a similar idea on the other side of the country, I remembered that my dad had 2 ideas that he flew me all the way across the country for. And he said, and I said, what's the other idea? And he's like, oh my gosh. And I hired a coach. Now you have to remember, this was the 80s, 1988 to be exact, 30 years ago. And I had never heard the term life coach or business coach. So when he told me he hired a coach, I remember looking at him and just going, seriously, Dad, like you are way too old to play sports. Trying to imagine him like in a basketball and he's like, no, not like that, like a consultant. And he went on to tell me how he had hired the student of Napoleon Hill who wrote the book Think and Grow Rich. And he paused, kind of waiting for me maybe to be like impressed or something. But unfortunately, I'd never heard of Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich. I was, again, mid to early 20, I was probably about 24, 25 at this time. And so he's like, okay, forget all that, but let me just tell you what happened. And he went on to tell me that this guy had taught him to write his goals first person, present tense, as if they were already happening. Okay, now that's kind of mainstream now. You know, we write affirmations. Jill's doing that, you know, over the course of this 30 days. But 30 years ago, affirmations were new. And the idea of writing something as if it was happening was actually psychotic. Like, why would you do that? At least that's what I was thinking. Why would I do this? And but my dad told me, he said, Ann, I did this, and in the course of a year, I quadrupled my income, I paid off my house, and I bought a Cadillac cash. Now, that impressed me. And he's bottom lined it, and he's like, look, maybe between this goal-setting technique that I just told you about, and between this business idea, maybe you can get something going for yourself financially. I mean, obviously, my dad's not going to let his daughter and his 2 granddaughters starve to death, so he'd bailed us out on a couple of occasions. However, he did need us to be financially stable at some point, right? And so anyway, he handed me a booklet, and he's like, Ann, just read this. It's what I did. It can work. And so I took it home, and again, I read it. I thought it was weird, but I did it anyway. And I sat down at my typewriter and I wrote something that went like this. I have a wassail business, and by December 31st, 1989, I make $20,000 selling 6,000 bags of wassail at 6 craft shows. And every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I make the necessary phone calls and accomplish the tasks that I need to. And it feels incredible to be on top of things financially. Now, again, all of that wasn't true. I didn't have a wassail business. I didn't even know what you did in a wassail business. Typed wise, it was about this long. The book said, do it in all areas of your life. So I wrote ideally what I wanted, physically, in my relationship, spiritually, just a paragraph or 2. And when I was done, I had maybe 1.5 pages. And I thought that was it. And I was like, okay, that was weird, but I guess I'm done. Until the next day when my dad called me and he's like, hey, did you do it? And I'm like, yep, I did. And he goes, okay, good. Did you record it? And I'm like, record it? What are you talking about? And he's like, Ann, part 2 in the back of the book, go find it. And again, this booklet was just like 20 pages, self-published, spiral bound, little teeny booklet that my dad had loaned me, so I knew what I was doing, sort of. And so I found it, and there on the very last page, it said part 2. I flipped it over, and it said, now record it on a cassette tape recorder with Baroque music playing in the background. Well, you can imagine if I thought part 1 was weird, what I thought about part 2. I kind of frisbeed that straight into the trash can, and I'm like, I'm not doing that at all. But the more I thought about my own situation and the bill collectors calling and the kids crying because the peanut butter was gone and all of that, I'm like, okay. So I go to the library. I tell the librarian that I need a tape recorder. Back then, there was no other technology. There literally was cassette tape recordings, and that was it. That was the only way. And they came in big black tape recorders. And I said, and I need some Baroque music. To which the librarian looked at me and she kind of giggled, and then she giggled a little more, and then she busted a gut. And I'm like, what? What? Why are you laughing? And she's like, honey, that's Baroque music, not Baroque music. I guess it was Baroque on the brain, but she started handing me Mozart and Handel and all of these, classical composers that, of course, I did know who they were. I went home, took those, grabbed my kid's Fisher-Price tape recorder, and recorded my first Ideal Life Vision. So you can imagine that I have my kid's Fisher-Price, and I have this big black tape recorder, and I'm playing the music, and I'm reading on my typed written page because we didn't have a computer. They were new, expensive. I only had a typewriter. I started reading it with the music playing, feeling really stupid. Like, what am I doing? Talking into my kid's Fisher-Price tape recorder. But I'm doing it, and I'm almost done. And my kids come running in the room screaming, Mom, she hit me, get her off me, blah, blah, blah. And all of this racket of them screaming and fighting is now on my recording. So I have to put them in front of Sesame Street, lock the door, start over, rewind, start all over. And I start again. And I'm almost done for the second time, and all of a sudden the phone rings. The rewind, the third time, the kids are pounding on the door, let us in, which is now on the tape recording. And it's one of those days that anything that could go wrong went wrong. 3 hours later, I finally have my 10-minute tape done. And I get it. I'm supposed to listen to it every day. That's the whole purpose of the recording. And I do listen to it. And it's great for about 3 days until one day I heard myself say, I make $20,000. And I thought to myself, yeah, right, Anne, you've never even made $200 at a business. And now you think you're going to make $20,000. Get real. And so I know we've all had that experience, the voices in our head telling us something negative, something that we believe. Luckily for me, the voice didn't say, this is stupid, this will never work. It said, get real. Okay, so I decided to get real, and I'm like, what's realistic? And I thought, 20,000, no way. And I decided that 5,000 was more realistic. Now, truthfully, I didn't even think I could make 5,000 because I hadn't even made 200, but 5,000 was what I needed to avoid going to jail for not paying my bills. So that's the new number. But here's the deal. The thought of having to go back to re-record to change one word. Are you kidding? I am like way too lazy for that. It took me 3 hours. I'm not going to go do that for one word. And so my lazy self was like, look, Anne, when you're going to say 20,000, just vocally say 5,000 over the top. And that is exactly what I did. On my Walkman, I would be listening to it and I would think, here it comes, 5,000. And I would just blurt that number out because I didn't want to re-record. Okay, so that was the truth of it. Now, that worked for about a week or two. And after about 2 weeks, you can imagine if you listen to the same thing over and over and over, pretty soon your mind starts wandering. Your brain checks out. I was thinking about my grocery list. I wasn't listening to this every single day, like hanging on every word. And so what happened is one day I noticed that the tape was rewinding, but I didn't remember listening to it. And I panicked. I thought, how am I going to achieve my goal if I can't stay focused, listen to every word? And I didn't know what to do. And I called my dad's coach. His name and number was on the back of this little pamphlet that my dad gave me. And I'm like, hey, my dad's one of your clients, and I just have a question. How do I achieve my goals if I can't stay focused? Like, what do you have any tricks on how to stay focused? And he's like, I have one question for you. Did you record it to Baroque music? And I said, yep, I did. And why did I do that? Up to that point, I had never gone, I wonder why I'm recording this to Baroque music. But all of a sudden, right then, I was like, yeah, but why? And he's like, oh, because it's in so many hertz and it puts you in alpha and blah, 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 and all this scientific stuff. I had no clue what he was talking about. And so when he was all done, I was like, can you say that one more time in English? And he's like, oh, I have a client. I can't talk. I got to go now. Just keep listening. It's going to work. So needless to say, sometimes I was listening. Okay, here it comes, 5,000. And other times, la-di-da, thinking about other things. And I didn't say 5,000, but I heard 20,000. So I'm hoping you guessed the end of my story. That year, I grew a wassail business. I started one and I made $19,400 within $50 or $100 of that. And I was beside myself. Like I had almost doubled my husband's income. And he said to me jokingly, you should put a 0 on the back of that for next year. And I was like, 20,000 with a 0? Are you kidding? That's 200,000. And he's like, I am kidding. But I thought about it and I'm like, I wonder if it would work just for an experiment, not because I thought it really could work, but I decided to redo my ideal life vision. And I sat down at the typewriter again and up-leveled every level or every section. My finances, my business, my relationships, my health turned into 7 pages. That year, I listened consistently, and that year we made 93,000. I put in 100, and we only made 93. But let me just tell you, I wasn't that disappointed. Okay, so anyway, that's my story. And that's the money aspect that I chose to tell you about. But that's just like one piece of it. I'm so glad I didn't re-record to change it to 5,000 because I'm pretty sure that's where my brain would have focused and I would have made 5,000 instead of, 19,000 that first year.
I love your story. And this morning I told Anne, I'm like, I want you to share your story. She's like, oh, I'm like, it's so powerful. To her, she's like, everyone's already heard it, but you guys haven't heard it. And, I've heard it many, many times and I love it every single time. So Anne, thank you.
Yeah.
For your story. So tell us a little bit about, you've told them now what Ideal Life Vision is, that you write it out in every area of your life, in health and fitness, spirituality, financial, business, relationships, in all the different areas of your life. And you write it as if it's already happened, right?
As if it's happening.
Happening. Okay,
yeah.
Happening. Right. And then you record it to Baroque music. So when I first met Ann Webb, it's been, I don't even know how many years ago. It's been quite like probably 8 years ago.
6 or 7-ish, I think. 7 or 8, okay. Yeah, probably.
So I met Anne at a business luncheon. I didn't know her at all. I didn't know what she did. And I was sitting with my friend Kimber, and I was talking to Kimber about the divorce I was going through, at the time. And this was like on a Friday. And we were supposed to be going to trial for our divorce on, I think, that following Tuesday. And after the luncheon was over, and well, just to preface, it was ridiculous that we were going to trial because we had nothing we just couldn't come to an agreement, but we had nothing to really argue over. We didn't have any assets. We didn't have anything left to even, try to go to trial for. And so after the luncheon, Anne walked up to me and she said, Jill, I can help you change the outcome of what you're going through. And I'm like, what? Like, seriously? So she said, yeah, call me when you get home. So I called her and she just helped me come up with this little paragraph that said something like,
it was you were going to avoid having to go to
The
court,
court,
that it would be
yes.
settled quickly and easily through a mediator, and
Yes.
that, yeah, it was primarily avoiding the court is what you
Yes.
wanted. And
Yeah.
we created some emotion and some details. I mean, more details than just that. But yeah, I remember
Right.
that.
So I did it. So I did it on a Friday, and I just listened to it over the weekend. And come Monday night, my ex-husband called me, and he's like, I feel like we could just really settle this out of court. Let's just get a mediator. And I was like, oh, hella freaking Luya. Like, this is so powerful, and it really works. So needless to say, I learned how to do this from Anne, and I've done it in every area of my life. And things just keep coming to fruition. They just keep coming and coming, and we redo it every single year. And we get together, and sometimes we do it together. It's just been super, super fun. So Anne, when you just share a few other stories of people that you have helped, along with me, but you've helped so thousands and thousands of people with their ideal life vision. So can you tell us a few stories? Or
I mean, the thing is, I mean, I'll just kind of, I don't know. I don't think I'll tell another money story, but the thing that's really interesting is that I was an entrepreneur because I had this food business. And so that was kind of my niche. I wanted to help entrepreneurs create a vision for their business and their life so that they actually could focus on their business, but not at the expense of their life. And so that was where I focused. And I've trained, I don't know, tens and tens of thousands of people in that. But the thing that I found interesting was that so many people came to me to make money. And again, Ideal Life Vision, just to kind of to step back one step on this, is really, it's to compel you to take action. Okay. It's a combination of the minute clarity, the action plan, the details, the emotion, the motivation, the power of your own voice, the power of music, all of that together. That's what makes it powerful. It's not just one, it's all of those together that makes it like the magic sauce. Okay, so people are coming to me to make money, and I'm saying, okay, look, I'll take you on as a client, but you have to do all the areas. This isn't Anne's money-making system. This is called Ideal Life, all areas of your life. And I started realizing that some of these people were having as much success, if not more, in their relationships than they were making money. And so I was really intrigued by that. And so just as an example, people that had broken relationships was one of them. I cannot tell you the number of newly divorced women that came to me saying, I have custody battles with my husband, ex-husband, and we just need, not that we're going to reconcile or really even like each other, but we need to get along for the sake of our children. And even creating a vision around that. Sisters who hadn't spoken in 5 years over some stupid thing, reconciling. Even on the other side of, my husband and I consistently go on a date night, every week, that type of thing. Or I've made it a habit of reading to my 5-year-old every single night. Okay, because here's the deal. Sometimes it's all the little things like reading to a child, going on a date night that make up your ideal life. It's not necessarily the big ones, which I will tell you, I have well over 100 clients that have gotten married using Ideal Life Vision, okay? And for a while, I was having people going, you should turn your niche into helping people get married. Well, I don't want to, but it's an idea, right? And so anyway, those types of things are, I mean, I'm not really going into more specific stories, but just other things like relationships. I have people that have, lots of people that have done marathons, half marathons, lost weight. Also, Ideal Life Vision is an implementation system. So let's say you're doing, some health, you hired a health coach or something like that, and they're saying, you should be doing this, eating this way, exercising like this, blah, blah, blah. they're saying those types of things, you should be putting that into your life vision, right? Because if you hear it every day, rather than just writing all these notes in a notebook and hearing it, but now you're hearing your voice saying the very thing that your teacher or trainer is telling you, that's where the power comes in, right? So there are I literally could sit here for an hour or 2 or 3 and say, oh, I thought of another one. I mean, I used to be incredibly shy. The thought of even coming on something like this 30 years ago, I would have told Jill no, because I would have thrown up. I would have been so nervous that I wouldn't have even remembered my name. Okay. But I put in my life vision that it was easy for me to talk. I was outgoing. I had lots of friends, blah, blah, blah. And that soon became a reality. So this is for big things like make $1 million, married, start a business. It's for little things like get up a half hour earlier, having a consistent morning ritual, reading to your kids, whatever your unique goals are. That's what Ideal Life Vision is for, to compel you to take action.
And I love too that it made me get really crystal clear on all of my dreams and goals with emotion and with feeling. And it's just so, okay, so I have a question for you. Someone wrote in, does listening to it make you feel overwhelmed because of all these aspects of life that you want to recreate?
Okay, so when somebody asks me that, because I do lots of workshops and always 1 or 2 people will come up and go, I'm only done 1 section and I'm totally overwhelmed now. So I have, in fact, even Thursday, 2 days from now, I'm going to Oregon to train Ideal Life Vision to 3 of my favorite people, and that is my 3 daughters. And it's just the 4 of us. I'm going to rewrite mine. And I already know that going into that, they like simple and less because they tend to get overwhelmed as well. But I always tell them this. I say, instead of saying 1 or 2 goals, which you probably, won't overwhelm you, I said, my thing is I know that your brain can only focus on a couple of them. But what has been my experience over 30 years is some of these goals that I put in there, like, oh, I'm kind and I'm charitable. Okay, now, they're not always things like create $1 million like that. I'm not necessarily focusing on that. But when I get to the end of the year, I'm like, wow, who knew that I would have started a humanitarian company, that I would have given, 5% or 10% of my income to charity, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't even really have to do that much. It didn't overwhelm me. It just popped up. And so for people that tend to be overwhelmed, I always suggest that they don't go overboard, okay, because they already know that they may get overwhelmed. Just pick a couple of the top goals for the next 90 days and then redo it. I mean, that's another option of doing it.
Yeah, I love that. So another question is, do you still have your original Life Vision recording?
I do.
I love that. It's great.
The thing is it's, I've had it in a drawer and it keeps moving with me, and it got thrown into a box. Now my kids tried to throw their Fisher Price tape recorder away a few years ago when we were cleaning out the toy room. And I was like, nope, we're keeping that. I do have it. I don't dare listen to it, my first original recording, because I'm pretty sure that it would unravel in the tape recorder. It's that old and fragile. But I do have it, just a little gray cassette tape recorder with a red line on it. So I knew it was my Life Vision. And no, I didn't put Anne's Life Vision because I didn't want anyone to know what it was. The red line meant something to me and nobody else.
I love that. That's awesome. Oh my goodness. Okay, so tell everyone how they can get more information about Ideal Life Vision, how they can record it. Just speak a little bit too about Africa and what you've been doing.
Okay, yeah. So the website is createalifevision.com. Createalifevision.com. And that is my full program. Everything you really need to do it online. And 100%, it's $99, and 100% of that actually goes to Africa to support women and youth in creating their own ideal life vision. I have to pay some trainers to go do that. And to be quite, I don't know, candid about this, I am living my own ideal life vision. I don't do this for money anymore, but I do need people to put skin in the game, and I do love to help people in Africa. So that was one of my goals 7 years ago. I put in my life vision that I took ideal life vision to developing countries, and I had no idea how that was going to happen, but it did. And that's been my passion for the last 7 years. I still train entrepreneurs, and if doing it online isn't your thing, there's a chance maybe Jill and I could do, a workshop sometime, because there's nothing quite like a live experience, right, Jill?
Oh, and we spend a whole day together. If you guys are interested in coming to Utah to do this, or then we'll just have a big slumber party here at my house.
So there's a couple ways. If you're local or willing to fly, we could do a live workshop, which is great. Or you can do it online at createalifevision.com. Again, all of that money goes to Africa. So that's, I don't know. It's just my other company is Global Life Vision. The tagline is creating humanitarians. And I actually partner with people that want to do projects or make a difference in the world. And so anyway.
I love that. And just so many amazing stories and things that are happening in Africa because of Ideal Life Vision. I mean, when Ann and I get together and talk about it, I just get tears in my eyes with things that are happening over there. This is so powerful. And thank you. Thank you so much for coming on today to share with the world something that has been so near and dear to my heart for so many years, and how near and dear to my heart you are to me. So thank you.
Yeah, I love you, friend, and it's been fun to be friends with you and to just, share our ups and downs and all of that, but to be able to hang on to the vision of what we want to create.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, you guys, again, the affirmation for today is I design and live my ideal life. And who doesn't want to live their ideal life, right? Exactly, getting clear on your dreams and your goals and putting it to the music and everything that Anna's taught us. So again, you can go to createalifevision.com if you're interested in doing it online, or get a hold of me, message me, whatever, if you want to do it in person, and we'll get it put together in between Ann's trips to Africa and Oregon and wherever she's traveling next. So I love you, Ann. Thanks again for being on today.